So good morning and warm welcome to our first coffee house chat. I'm Mrs. Minrara. I'm the proud assistant principal of Woodrow Wilson. Miss Blevins, our principal, would be joining in a few minutes with us. She's in a meeting. On behalf of our school, I would like to really thank each and every one of you for joining this. I'll give you a brief introduction about Coffee House before we get started. So Coffee House is an informal chat between parents, counselors, teachers, us, to really, provide social and emotional support to your child. These are not normal times, and we understand that everybody is educating the kids at home, and the virtual learning is going on. So the goal for Coffee House is to really provide a platform where we discuss issues related to middle school and share strategies with you to support your child at home. So I have two people I would like to introduce. One is Miss Sedler. She's a veteran teacher here at Woodrow Wilson. She's our Coffee House liaison and would be assisting us with the topics of Coffee House. Later in the year, you will receive a survey from Miss Sedler, really asking you what topics you would like us to discuss in this Coffee House chat. And then second, I have Miss McDermott here. She's our Rutgers Path clinician. Here she's waving, I see her. And she is going to be presenting today related to trauma and COVID-19 and providing support to your children at home. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss McDermott, and right after her presentation, we would have some time for you to ask questions.
Thank you, Ms. Minrara. Hi, everyone. So we're going to get started. I'm going to share my screen. Even though I've been doing this for a while, I am more attuned to Google Meets. So I'm going to do my best here. Yeah, see, okay. So while I'm getting my screen up, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I do. I am the Rutgers Path clinician at Woodrow Wilson Middle School, and I also am at John Adams Middle School. I'm a licensed mental health clinician. And a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. And my role in the school is to meet with students who may be struggling a little bit, maybe need some extra skills to manage stress, anxiety, depression, any kind of mental health needs, and also to do crisis assessments. Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right, I did it. All right, let me just move this. We're all learning, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So today's topic, we really just wanted to focus on, the impact of COVID-19, especially on our children, early adolescents, and even younger kids, and how the COVID-19 can be considered a traumatic event. And then with that, it may have impacted our kids differently. We may see some responses that are related to, traumatic stress responses and things like that. So we just kind of want to, the goal of this presentation is to help you maybe recognize some of these signs or symptoms, and then how to get to assist your child or your adolescent in managing them. Okay, so trauma and COVID-19, the impact on adolescents. So what is trauma? Trauma is an emotional response to a traumatic event that's dangerous, frightening, violent, and poses a threat to the person. So that can even be a person who witnesses someone's life being in danger or the integrity of their body or safety. There are different types of traumas. Typically, we think that there's what we call big T trauma. So those are these big events that happen, natural disasters, COVID-19, things like that. And then we can consider little T traumas, which can be some traumatic events, maybe losing someone really close to the person, and kind of like these events that only happen once, but the responses can happen over time. Okay. So witnessing someone else, especially a loved one, experiencing a traumatic event can also, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, can also have impact on our kids or whoever, right? That can also be about hearing it. So they don't necessarily need to witness it visually. They can hear about a traumatic event and then also get these responses that we're going to talk about. Okay. So COVID-19 is considered a traumatic event, right? It's unusual. It was unexpected. It has this threatening component to it, right? Fatalities, people getting sick. It interrupted normalcy. This is huge. It kind of took the structure, which adolescents and most adults would consider safety, and it just threw it up in the air and said, you know what, normalcy's out the window, and our sense of safety is kind of being questioned and challenged. And it also initiated some panic and hysteria, right? I think we all can remember toilet paper. And that was even nerve-wracking for me as an adult. I was like, oh my gosh, where am I going to get this? And that was just something like very little, right? We would have been able to manage without toilet paper, but our kids, even our teens, when we think they're smart, like really, really smart, that's scary. If they're like, oh my gosh, adults are panicking about toilet paper. That must mean they're panicking about life, safety, school, right? If they see us panicking about toilet paper. And it also created this uncertainty. I think we all, especially as adults, can really agree on that uncertainty makes us feel a little anxious. Most of the time we might feel worried or anxious because we don't know things. We don't know what to expect. We don't know what's happening. And then our adolescents don't have as much knowledge and experience that we do. So this uncertainty is a lot bigger for them, especially because, you know, their executive functioning and rationale, analytical part of their brain's not fully developed. So they also can't even make it fit in places.
That's true.
So, all right, how are adolescents affected by COVID-19 and trauma? So emotionally, we might see some mood swings, crying spells, even not having the language to express how they're feeling. They might not be able to recognize that they're feeling scared, that they're feeling unsafe, they're feeling worried. So we can see that they might withdraw, they might isolate, they might actually throw themselves into certain activities, right? They might only focus on certain things, and it's almost like a overwhelming amount of focus. And because they can't regulate their emotions, right? They don't have that necessarily safety that when I'm feeling scared, I'm going to feel safe, right? They don't necessarily have that. COVID-19 kind of took safety and made it a bit rocky for us. Physically, they might be losing weight, gaining weight. Sleep patterns are really off, so their bodies can be tired in different ways than that they normally are. Or we might see actually more energy, right? Because they might have a lot of adrenaline moving through their bodies due to their fight response, right? When they're feeling threatened or unsafe, our body just shoots out adrenaline, and they might be constantly moving, not being able to sit still, right? Stomach aches, headaches, dizziness. We can also see an increase in just regular, well, what we would consider regular ailments, common colds. Asthma attacks might be increased. Okay, and now socially, a lot of these are intertwined, right? Isolation, withdrawal. They might be scared to see their friends, scared to see family members, right? You know, now that things are lifting a bit more, we might see more apprehension, or they might be totally eager to do that, which, okay, I can see that. But socially, there's also this impact of how safe is it to go back to school? How safe is it to go food shopping? When that's considered a social event, right? Because we're around people. And then other kids who actually really excelled in social situations such as concerts, music, you know, arts, sports, that was taken away from them. So then we might even see a decrease in self-esteem, self-concept, right? Feeling sad because of the things that they love and they excelled in was taken away. Academically, what I think, you know, is really common is we're seeing some a decrease in grades and performance, focus, working memory. It's really, really hard for anyone. And then if we throw in teens, it is very hard for them to focus on academics or focus at least on a problem when their minds are constantly running on maybe intrusive thoughts about the safety of COVID or being worried about something or not feeling safe. They're in survival mode. So the only things that they're really thinking about are like, oh, I feel so crummy. I feel so tired. I feel scared. So it's hard for them to retain information and to focus on, you know, 8 times 8, something as simple as that. So we see a lot more of that difficulty focusing, organizational skills kind of out the window when we think about structure and time management, right? Because things kind of just float into each other, right? I know I have a hard time thinking like, all right, I'm working Siobhan right now, but then I'm home. So when do I switch over to mom Siobhan? Right? Kids feel the same way. They normally went to school, they were students, then they came home and they were kids. But now it's like, where does that role end, right? And then culturally, our culture completely shifted. And I mean, we're not even focusing on the other aspects of what's going on in our country right now. Even just with COVID itself, culturally, big shock for kids. I mean, we're talking face masks, school's not the same, grocery shopping's not the same, parks aren't the same. And this has a huge impact on our kids in the sense of safety again, normalcy, and just kind of having that free spirit that they can just do what they want, right? That's kind of, it's set smaller for them. Okay, so how can we help? I love this scene from Frozen 2, if anybody has seen it. This is the scene after Arendelle gets like shaken up and everybody has to run out of Arendelle and no one knows what's happening, right? And Anna and Elsa are talking and then they switch over to Olaf and here he is with the kids and they're putting icicles in him and Olaf says, we're calling this controlling what you can when things feel out of control. That is the brilliant Frozen people focusing on trauma. And one of the best things we can do is just focusing on the things we can control when things feel out of control, right? And that's what Olaf did. I love that part. I saw a few thumbs up, so I'm assuming we've got some fans here. So how can we do that? As close as possible, maintaining a similar routine. Every day with your kids or as often as you can. It's very, very difficult because we're also going through this too. But even if it's just meaning every 3 nights a week, you try and eat dinner together, you know, some kind of routine, or when they wake up in the morning, the first thing they do is brush their teeth. Great. You know, just throwing in things that can remain the same. Staying connected, super important. Even if it is just through Zoom, text messages. I know these kids are really loving TikTok. It's incredibly addicting, but like they love it. And you know what? It makes them feel like, oh, I can see somebody across like the country and they're dancing and they're doing this. There's some sense of normalcy, but we do want that at least verbalization. Staying connected as parents with our kids too, huge. Whether that's playing a card game, watching a movie together, and just even telling our kids, you know, I'm here with you. That's it. You know, I'm here with you. Limit media exposure, especially when it's related to COVID-19, especially when it's related to the other stuff that's going on in our country right now. Like I said earlier, trauma events don't necessarily have to be witnessed by the eye. They can be heard indirectly, especially because, again, that's this kind of a threat that we can't see about COVID-19. Like if I were to say for you right now, if we're all in the jungle, right? And we see some lions in the distance, it's a little scary, but we see them, right? We know it's gonna take a second for them to run over and try and catch us. But what about the lion you don't see in the grass? But you know it's there, but you can't see it. So at any given moment, that lion can jump up and be right next to you, but you don't know. That's essentially COVID-19. So when we're thinking about media exposure and they're hearing these things, it is a reminder to them that it can pop up at any moment, anywhere. So we really want to just make sure that it's very limited, and that we ask our kids, what was that like for you hearing that? Let me clarify that for you to the best of my ability. And if you don't know, saying, I really don't know. We want to be as honest as possible. We want to give trustworthy information, and we want to let them know too that we also are human, and we're going to do the best that we can to give them updated information, and let them know that we're here for them and we support them. But we also don't want to lie to them. You know, I had a kid yesterday tell me, oh yeah, I got the vaccine for COVID-19 yesterday at the doctor. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You know? But like, I know this kid and he was fooling around with me. But it's just important to so then we just kind of talked about, what do you know about a COVID-19 vaccine? Opening up that conversation. And he's like, well, I know, they're like making it and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, because people genuinely care and they want to solve this problem and make it better. So they're working on it. We just don't know when it's going to come out. Right? That's as honest as I know. And I don't know anything else. Encouraging healthy habits, physical activity. I'll ask some of the kids I meet with, have you been exercising? And they're like, yeah, gym class. And I'm like, get real. It's remote gym. Are you exercising? And I said, outside of gym, it's a different kind of response when it's in class as opposed to when it's outside of class. So whether that is a walk outside, as long as your child feels safe, or you know what, like a YouTube video. I know I have a 3-year-old and I try and get him to do Cosmic Kids yoga. He doesn't do it, but I try. I'm like, jump up and down, you know, doing jumping jacks with them. That helps them get back into their bodies, which gives them that sense of safety. I can control what I feel in my body. I can control my movements in my own body, right? And the fact that physical activity will keep their immune system up and keep them healthier. That helps mood, that helps emotions, that helps focusing in school. I mean, physical activity is very, very great as just a foundation. Well-balanced diet. You know, we want to do the best that we can. We know teens love sugars and carbs and junky snacks. I guess I'm considered a teen still, but anyway. So we want to just make sure we throw in some healthy things for them, and absolutely making sure that they're drinking water. When people are experiencing a lot of anxiety, worry, even some like depression and things like that, water is a kind of staple just to kind of bring them, regulate their body's natural system back. So usually if somebody's having a lot of anxiety, I'll say, you know what, why don't you go get a glass of water and come back to this screen and let's sip some water. It helps move things through their body. It helps the adrenaline move through. It helps kind of salvate their body and like rehydrate. So making sure they get water, and healthy sleep hygiene. I can't express this enough. Having a set bedtime, and wake time, if you can. We all know teens, they're wanting to sleep till like 1 o'clock and go to sleep at 1 a.m. I mean, that's a part of their natural system too. They don't tend to get tired until about 11 p.m. at night, but maybe just having a bedtime routine, right? So what works for them? Trying to shut off any kind of screen time an hour before bedtime is ideal. It may not be realistic. Do what you can and that what works best for your family and your child. Ask for support. I'm here, Mrs. Menderat is here, Ms. Blevins here, your child's school counselors are around too, they're here. Ask for support. If you have questions about anything, you know, no question is silly, ever. We all have been, we've all have never been here before in this situation. So asking a question, most likely is validated in the sense that we're all kind of having that sense of whatever it is. So ask for support. Even if you're thinking that your kid just might be going through, you know, hormonal changes. Okay, but you know what? They can use the support anyway, or ask a question, how can I help them? I notice that they're just yelling at me a lot. I wish I had a full answer for you for that. But we can help out and we can work with you on, you know, maybe developing a plan or just offering you some assistance and validation in that. This is hard times for everyone. All right, so when to seek outside support and counseling services. If you notice any kind of changes in mood, behavior, appetite, and grades, any changes, even slight changes, are big indicators for us that let me check in with my child. Whether it is hormonal changes or whether it is like they got into a fight with a friend, it's important to just kind of recognize them and recognize that like, they normally were kind of like this happy-go-lucky kid, and now I notice that they're sulking around a bit. They're sleeping more. They're not eating as much, or they're eating really late at night. Those are some like kind of little red flags that are popping up just to be aware of and conscious of. Even if we don't feel like we are, we're observing our kids, right? So just recognizing these little changes is something to be like, maybe I can talk to somebody about this. Let me see if this is a problem or a concern. Hopelessness and thoughts about death or dying. These are very, very big red flags, and I would suggest reaching out to someone immediately for this. Sometimes we think it's just a phase, kids are curious. reach out to a professional for something like this, especially if we're seeing hopelessness. Like, what's the point in doing this? I won't graduate school anyway, or nothing's going to change. That's a pretty significant sign that they're struggling a bit. Or saying, like, sometimes kids ask, like, what happens when you die? Okay, they're curious. Engage in that conversation. What do you think happens when you die? What does that mean? And things like that. And if you're uncomfortable, ask for support. It's part of my job, is that question and responding to it. So if you need help in the sense of, how do I respond to this? Contact me, and we can even role play it out. Or I can just write you a dialogue, But definitely seek out support services if you have any concerns for that. Intense fear or anxiety, if you notice that your child's very scared to go out, or really, really worried, if they're needing some safety things. Like, I know I'm working with a student right now who won't leave her house without one of her stuffed animals. And if she doesn't have the stuffed animal, she legit won't walk out the door. That's a sign where it's like, okay, maybe I should seek out some support. Or if they're consistently saying, like, what if I get this? I can't touch that. I can't do this. I can't breathe in public. That's an intense fear. So definitely seek out services for that, or even just reach out to me and just say, hey, this is what I've noticed. What do you think? What are the next steps? And if they ask to speak to someone, if your child asks to speak with someone, we really, really want to show them that we're open and we support that. It has nothing to do with us as parents or us as people. It's not to the best of our abilities to try not to take it personally, or at least show our child that we're taking it personally. This is around the time where they start kind of moving away from their parents anyway, not necessarily because they don't trust you or they don't like you. They're afraid that they're going to upset you or they're going to hurt your feelings. So even if you say, I won't get mad, or you won't hurt my feelings, just talk to me, they're still going to have some kind of reservation about it. So if they ask to speak to a counselor, I would highly suggest reaching out to counselors. If you need help finding one, that's what I'm here for too. Reach out to me, reach out to the school counselor. We will be more than happy to help. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So that's a very, very short version of trauma and COVID. I could have went on for ages. When I found out just to do about a half an hour, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to condense this? And look at that, 27 minutes. So if you have any questions, please feel free. You can unmute yourself. You can ask the question. Mrs. Mendrada, I don't know if we have a chat box open. If you feel more comfortable typing a question in the chat, and if you don't mind reading it aloud, I can't not share my screen.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. McDermott. I'll look at the questions in the chat too, and we have Ms. Blevins right here with us.
Oh, hi, Ms. Blevins.
Yes, so please at this point, ask any questions you have related to this presentation, and Ms. McDermott would be more than happy to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. McDermott, can you take us off your screen share, and then this way we'll have a grid view of everybody if they wanted to ask?
I will gladly do that.
Great.
Yeah, so I already have one question. Will the slides be available? Yes, we would be sharing the slides with the parents, and this presentation is recorded, so we'll be sharing that.
I didn't know that.
And feel free to ask questions. You could raise your hand or just type it in the chat.
Yeah, and just until we get a few more questions, I think a lot of the times we were, and what I've been hearing and noticing, I've been working throughout the summer with students, and even outside. I have a private practice, and I've been working with these younger kids and teens through that. Just some things that I've just seen across the board is the trouble with navigating time and organization. A lot of the times the kids will be like, I just feel like I'm doing schoolwork all day. And so it's a lot, we're working on taking breaks. Okay, so I'm going to read some of the comments all the time.
Yes, we're starting to get some questions. And just everybody know that, even though we are on remote learning, the school is up and running. We're all here to support you. Any topic, anything you want to discuss, you could reach out to us. You could reach out to Ms. McDermott. We'll be more than happy to answer. So, Shwan, are you able to see the questions?
Yes, and so I see Miss Brown too. So Miss Brown, there are just 2 questions before you, and then that's you. Thank you. So we have here that a parent is worried because the child is staying home all the time. They don't want to go out and playing PlayStation all the time. I assure you, you are not alone in that. A lot of the kids, I think, are just playing video games all of the time. It's funny because they complain about being on the computer, but they go on the video game all the time. I see a few parents like, yes. There's a social component to the video games too that are outside of the school. So it does have this sense of normalcy in that way. And they did play video games pre-COVID. So there is that normalcy. But then there's also, I'm sure you're seeing the extended amount of video game time. And as parents, this is where it becomes the hard part for us, is that it's setting limits and timeframes. Again, when we're talking about maintaining as much, controlling what we can, is controlling the time that they spend on video games, what they're doing while they're at home. So if they're staying home all the time, but they're maybe talking to their friends on the phone, talking with you and communicating with you, that's great. They're staying connected. If they're exercising or maybe encouraging that, you might have to even do some of the exercises with the kids or do some of the activities. I know it's hard because most of us are working from home too. So finding that balance, the not going outside at all, that's something that might be a little bit more difficult. And there's that like little red flag that I was talking about. If you're noticing that your child's is having a difficult time or is apprehensive to even go outside for a walk because of some kind of fear, or they might not even be able to recognize that they're feeling fearful, I would definitely reach out to someone and see if they would be able to help maybe talk to your student or help you talk with your child on ways to engage them and kind of see what's happening in a bit more detail. Again, you are going to get a copy of these slides. My email's on there. Please feel free, send me an email. I'd be more than happy to talk with you and your student about that. I'm sorry if I didn't fully answer that question, but it's individualized, right? Every kid is different. So let's see. How do you work with your child when they feel overwhelmed with the amount of schoolwork? Oh, we're seeing this all the time, right? Ms. Blevins, Ms. Mandarata, we're seeing that all the time when they come home disconnected from the day and now having to do homework. Talk about that. Yeah, that was most of my sessions yesterday with the students I met with.
Can I chime in on that one?
I would love if you did. Please.
So we all have different levels of feeling overwhelmed, right? Some of the children are able to cope with remote learning. They kind of plug along through the day, do their classwork, they close the computer, they're done. They seem to have adjusted to the new normal of remote learning. But some of our kids are struggling, they're not able to pay attention when they're online. I see it in my own daughter who's on Zoom. She's more interested in watching what other kids are doing on the screen than listening to her teacher and doing the classwork while she's on the screen in class time. So I see her and, she's waving hi to her friends and they're, doing signs and meanwhile the teacher's teaching and the teacher's talking and she's supposed to be, completing an assignment, but she's distracted. And it's not because she's a bad student and it's not because she's trying to be disrespectful. She's a fourth grader and, it's interested to see what her friends are doing on the screen. So we need to, pay attention to that, make sure that when they are on their virtual class time, they have a quiet space, maybe headphones to use. They're not distracted by the people in our own home. If they are being distracted, like my daughter, what I did was I switched it to like speaker view so she could only see the teacher when the teacher is teaching. So she stays a little more focused. But beyond that, the very first thing I would do if it seems too overwhelming, they're up all night doing homework, is I would have a conversation with the teacher. I would definitely reach out to the teacher and email them, express exactly what you're expressing here, and start that dialogue with the teacher. Because we found it, even in a traditional school, this question, Ms. McDermott, I think comes up all the time. And we find out that, the kids tell us that they're up all night doing homework. And then we find out they're doing Google Hangout chats with all their friends because that's their social time. And then maybe that's not the case. So with that dialogue with the teacher, you can involve the guidance counselor. We could really find out what's going on with the individual child. Everything's individual. And then, if it is really a matter of too much work, then we can work with the teacher so that we lessen that work, or that we come up with a schedule, or an opportunity for the teacher to meet one-on-one with the child. There is some time built into the remote schedule for that, so that if it's somewhere where they need extra support because they're falling a little behind, it seems overwhelming to them, we have those mechanisms in place that we can address it. So that would be my answer to the question, about that being overwhelming. We are seeing that, but the best thing as parents is to reach out, and let's have that open dialogue so we could really support the kids.
Yeah, and so that's great. Thank you. Because the academic point of view is something that I think that question, a great question, and like Ms. Blevins said, it's something we're hearing across the board. It's a two-part, right? There's the multiple part, the academic part, which I don't necessarily have that great of an answer. So that's where I'm glad Mrs. Blevins hopped on, because there's different parts of that, right? I can say in an ideal world what we would love to do, right? Unfortunately, that's not how any school works or any like real life stuff works. So it's about managing that and creating that balance. And just to kind of piggyback off what Ms. Blevins was said, what she said, and I'm seeing a comment too, I'm a parent, that yeah, like our kids are chatting and they're talking with their friends and they're staying up and they're like, yeah, I'm doing my math homework. No, you're not. Like, we know what you're doing, you know? But with that too, it's also, that's how they are driven, right? Their brains at this age are socially driven. And that's where, again, the normalcy was ripped out underneath them and the school part was taken out. And now it's just like their social frenzy. So they just want to talk all of the time. So it's just about managing, maybe talking with your child about, what are some times you can talk to your friends? Maybe can you do the assignments with your friends, as long as it's not cheating? I don't know how that would work. But a study group, if we're saying they're staying up late to study a lot, maybe they can make a study group with their friends. Also, setting timers and limits are very, very helpful. If your child is studying for a math test, 2 hours every single night, that might be a bit extensive. What we do know is their focus is out the window between 38 and 42 minutes. So if they're studying a prolonged amount of time after 42 minutes without a break, most likely that information is not being retained. So we have to teach our kids what that's going to look like. It's about taking breaks. It's about knowing when we need a break. So maybe asking them, pay attention to what your body's telling you. When you start fidgeting when you're doing schoolwork, you need a break. And whatever that's going to look like, 5 to 10 minutes. And then what we'll start seeing is that they won't be spending so much time on the academics because they're not tiring out their brains. They're not getting burnt out. If they're studying for that prolonged amount of time, they are going to get burnt out because they're going to think they're not retaining the information because they really aren't. So they're going to keep studying and studying until they think they know it. But in reality, they just need to take a break and then come back. And kind of helping them recognize that, and recognizing that at least right now, shooting for those hundreds and those extras, I mean, great, as long as it's not impacting your mental health and your sleep. So what we do know about performance and academic performance is that what's even more effective than studying is a good night's sleep, and also emotional stability within the home. So if it's not too overwhelming and hectic, students and kids tend to perform better academically. And if they feel connected to their family. So, just scheduling that out too and letting our kids know, like your classwork and your academics are super, super important, but so is the time we spend together. And so is time for you to exercise. So let's take a break right now. Take a 10-minute walk, watch your favorite show or YouTube video. No, not YouTube, they're on the computer. Something like that, and then come on back. And they have to have a set bedtime. So if it's about 11 o'clock and they're still doing work, well, time's up.
Sorry.
And it's time to go to sleep. And if they're feeling really stressed out about the work not being done, we'll encourage them to talk to their teacher about it, because their health and their sleep was much more important than completing that work. And the teachers at Woodrow, I mean, as long as it's not happening all the time, but the teachers at Woodrow are really, really great. And they really want to make sure your child succeeds. So, you know, it's a team approach, and we all want to make sure we do that appropriately and effectively. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Miss Brown, I'm so sorry. You had a question.
Yes, I did. I hope it's appropriate for now. When I learned that the school was going to start, and my boys too, they can't wait to get back to school. I think they miss the social interaction.
Us
Yeah.
too.
Well, you know what? They get to go outside. They're playing football. They're trying to play social distancing games where they run and jump. Okay. So now it's time to go to school, and I'm paranoid because I'm the person that's at risk here,
Right, right.
senior citizen, and send them to school. And my first attitude was, I'm sure the Board of Education is not going to send those kids in an environment that's going to get them sick. That's the last thing they want. They're going. But now I'm concerned. I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Am I sending, you know, should I send them? Should I keep them home? You know, so I spoke to my son this morning who's having a difficult time at home. Speaking with their teachers, and by the way, you said they're great teachers, and they are. All of them are great. It's amazing. I meant to write Miss Beblin, let her know, you know, who's who and how they're helping my kids. It's wonderful. Still, as you listen to the news, you hear the increase of people getting infected and numbers are increasing.
Yeah.
Shutting down schools, and I'm like, well, am I doing the? All the other moms are of the right age, I should say, to rearing up children that are my kids' age. I'm older, and I'm fearful that something can happen or someone's going to get sick, and am I putting myself at risk? You know, this is all I could think of. I spoke to my son this morning, and he says, well, Mom, you know, he could be so smart, yet I could take his neck. And so he says, Mom, now that we started, you can't just take us out now. You have to wait till the next marking period. I said, really? Well, I'm going to find out because I'm going to participate in a meeting so that they can tell me what my options are. I want them to go to school. My oldest is having a hard time at home. What am I supposed to do? Watch them as they do their work so that they don't get off track, or have the record of each period, which I do, when it starts, when it's ends, so I can say, okay, you finished with social studies, what's going on? What's the homework? I want to see that right quick so I can stay on. I think that's what he needs. I don't know if sending him in is going to make it better and he's going to follow up. And is this an early report card that we receive, the reports and how they're doing in class right now? When you read the dates, it says from 9/3 to 11/13, and it's 10/15. Does that mean they have 30 days to correct whatever deficiencies or have occurred, and maybe they could raise their grades and things of, you know? I know I went from apples to oranges and bananas just now. You know, I couldn't wait to get it out. So.
Some of those for you.
Huh?
I can answer some of those for you. So there might be a little fib in there
Okay.
about you can keep your children home on remote learning, even if you chose in person. So if you chose in person in August, we all know, we all see what's happening. And we all have to make decisions for our own family and our own family circumstances. So if you chose in person, you just email me and we can switch them to remote. And then you're going to get another survey in 2 weeks. If you want to change in person, you can do that, etc. So Ms. Brown, you just let me know. And then in terms of, you know, the other academic question I'll answer is the interim report cards went home. They're not report cards, interim reports. These are just progress reports. This is our mid-marking period. It's procedural in the district. So that's not necessarily the grade. I don't know why the dates on there indicated that, but it's halfway through. But in terms of the social aspects of things, you know, one of the things that I realized, because my daughter was really affected in the spring, she's a really social kid. Those of you who met her or seen her on the morning announcements, I'm sure you can see that. And it was really hard for her to be disconnected. from her friends and from her social activities. What I noticed is that once things started to open up a little bit in places where I felt comfortable, just having her, maybe once a week, we did softball in the summer. And it was outside, and she, they could wear the mask and socially distance, but she could actually have like a socially distanced game, right, appropriate, with other kids her age. That helped her mental health tremendously. So even if you keep them home on remote learning, like Miss McDermott said before, to still encourage that physical exercise, still encourage them to go outside at your comfort level. Sometimes as parents, we have to think outside the box too and be creative. And they say, okay, well, we're going to do this one activity either together as a family, or I'm going to let them, be around other kids their age in an appropriate environment. So they kind of get that socialization out. And I think it helps them so much. It helped my daughter, at least.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And just to add, that's absolutely what we've been seeing. I can't say it's absolutely right, but yeah, what we've been seeing is that's very helpful, especially in the sense of if there is a small group of kids that can kind of responsible to be able to do those things like social distance and do some activities. We want to encourage that, but then we also want to take in, Miss Brown, what you were saying is kind of like the risk of the family, right? And Miss Blevins said everyone's family is different, and we are encouraging you to take and make decisions that's appropriate and best for your family. So we also have to have that balance in the sense of, is my fear for my own health and the high risk I am at as a person and the rest, or someone else in my family, is that going to be so high that so high when my kids go to school that it will be projected onto them, so that then it's going to build my kids' anxiety and fear for me even more, because I chose for them to go to school, and now when they come home I'm saying, wash your hands, get changed, I'm so scared, I don't want to get sick. That can actually have a more severe impact for the kids. Even though they're saying, I want to go in this social experience, you also have to think about the impact of how we respond to things. We are human too. And we have our own fears. So we also have to think what's best for my responses, what's best for my own mental health with working with my kids, right? It's incredibly difficult. I know I've seen some parents here talking about it's hard to stay on top of our kids when we have our own lives. We have our own responsibilities that we have to do. So it's hard to keep on top of our kids with the schedule and management, right? And telling them to take breaks. So it's really gonna, maybe, one weekend you sit down as a family and say, what are the responsibilities each one of us can take? And maybe have a whiteboard and you write on that and saying, you are responsible enough to do this work. And then at 10:50, the whole family takes a break. This way you're all on the same page. It's very hard, right? Because we're also in this traumatic pandemic, and then we also have to take care of little people, right? So it's a lot of responsibility on us. So we want to make sure that we are at least creating some kind of security for our kids. So whatever that's going to look like. If you're going to be too scared and worried sending your kids back to school, then that's something that you're going to have to think about. And have that open communication with them, right? So I hope that makes sense. Because
I needed to hear some feedback. I needed to, in the neighborhood, I don't know whose kid is going to school. I'm not asking, but it's a personal decision that one makes, for my son, they need to be in school. Second marking period. So from this period on to the next marking period, is that in when?
I don't know.
The next marking period?
November 15th, second marking period starts.
So I can attempt or try it now until November. That's a month.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We could see what's going on, and then I can make a definite decision then, So when they come home, I have a mask on. Would that be not nice?
Miss Brown, whatever works for you and your family, I know my mom is, in her 60s. And so she watches my 3-year-old when I have to go to work to the building. And when I come home, she's just like, I got to get changed. I'm out, clothes immediately in the laundry room. And I'm like, Mom, but I'm old enough to recognize that, right?
You can understand.
Yeah. So, and I'm able to regulate my own emotions in the sense of saying, Mom, that scares me how scared you are. But if you just say, guys, I'm wearing this face mask just some safety, just until you come in, wash up a little bit, you know, you can play it off like in the sense of being creative and playful about it. If you're like, you gotta take your clothes off and and wash your hands, that's sending fear, right? But you can be playful about it, Miss Brown. Like, oh, I've got my mask on.
No,
You're full of germs today.
last minute scare, and I don't want to do that. They've been waiting. They want to go. You know, I hope that they listen to and do everything that the teachers ask them to do, and I'll be monitoring their work to see if it's worse or better. Because I continue to feel uncomfortable, then maybe in November I'll say, no, let's finish remote learning until they invent the vaccine, you know,
Right.
And then we can all feel better and not have to worry about it. But I do want to send them.
Yeah.
First it was let them go to school so I could be free, you know. No.
I think we all felt that way. And then, well, you know, and so Miss Brown, if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump to some of the other parents' comments.
Problem. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No worries. It's helpful. Like I said, I think we're all on the same boat there. We all had to kind of think, am I sending my kid back? Am I doing the right thing?
McDermott, I just have to say that I love your idea of making the chore chart and, you know, kind of assigning duties, because you're right, everybody's taking on more responsibility. So it helps if you as a family do things together, even cooking together or, you know, going for a walk together. I found that helpful with my own family.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. I think that's something that a few people are finding helpful. I mean, for teens, I see here, like, how do I get my child away from the screen, right? Because they go from computer to video games to YouTube. And I know a lot of times we might not want to hear this too. Sometimes we have to kind of set like behavior charts or rewards, you know, like when we're setting limits, and if we see like, all right, well, you've got 10 minutes on YouTube, and then say like, and then immediately after that, if you're able to turn off YouTube on your own for those 10 minutes, we can have that special treat that you had told me that you wanted, right? So even in that chore chart, or even like a schedule, written down schedule, somewhere where the child's always seeing and that you as the parent always sees, having some things like as the kids like write down like rewards that I like. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a video game or V-Bucks. It can be having tea with my mom or having my favorite snack, being able to sleep in a little bit late one day, staying up a little bit later, right? So then this way we're manipulating our kids, but we kind of have to, right? To be able to let them know when you manage your own time, there are rewards, and they need to experience that. And then eventually they're going to start seeing the natural rewards to that. And I saw here that a parent wrote something about flexibility. That's something, even talking to teachers in the way of saying, I know that there are a lot of these assignments for kids. There's a lot of homework and schoolwork. Talking to the teacher, how flexible are you on timelines and deadlines? What are the expectations for my child to complete this work? And if your teacher's like, they have to do 10 pages by tomorrow, and you don't think that's realistic, then there's something that you're gonna have to, you know, say to the teacher, this is not realistic for my child or my family. And then seeing if there's something else that can be done that way. And then also share information where we can contact for further questions. Oh, you have to go. The PowerPoint will be sent out. My email address is on there. So you can contact me by email. That's the best way. I'm always checking it, except on weekends. Yeah, so I hope I answered some of your questions. If you want some more tips, I can definitely do that. Send me an email. This is hard, and I'm not to say every tip works for every person. That is not true. You know yourself and your family's best.
Well, thank you, Ms. McDermott. I really appreciate your time today and spending some time with our parents in the PTA coffee chat. Thank you, Ms. Menderata, for getting us started today. I couldn't be here this morning because of a central office meeting. But I appreciate all of your time today, and I want to honor your time. So we'll be wrapping it up, but we did record today's session, so we will be able to send it out along with contact information. But the key is that we communicate with each other. We're problem solvers together. You are the eyes and ears at home right now in terms of what's going on with your child. So if you need anything, please reach out to us. Our counselors are available. Ms. McDermott's available. Administration, if it's something along the lines that we can help you with, please reach out to myself, Ms. Menderata, or our other vice principal, Mr. Zucchino. And I just want to thank everybody for their time today. And thank you to the PTA. Ms. Lee, our president of the PTA, is with us today for sponsoring events like this. I think it's so important for the community to get together and exchange ideas, answer questions. Because like Ms. McDermott said before, we are all in the same boat and experiencing the same things as parents, as people who are trying to work and balance. And so it's important to know that we have a community too, to support one another. We're not in this by ourselves. So please, if you have any further questions, reach out, and don't forget to put on your calendars the next dates of our coffee chats. They went out in the original email, and we'll be sending out more information prior to each one. So thank you everyone today.
Thank you. Ms. Blevins, can I just say one more thing? Sorry.
Sure.
Just one more thing to wrap up. Parents, everything I said also goes for you. We are role models, so please make sure you're taking breaks. Please make sure you're taking care of you. And just to reiterate, we are all here together, and we are all a community, and we're here to support each other. So you're not alone. Reach out. Take care of yourselves, please. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you. All the information about Ms. McDermott, our counselors, are also included in our parent handbook. So we keep adding links to your digital parent handbook. So please keep that as a reference, and all the resources are in there too. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.